In Lesson 3.8, there's an additional target that we should focus on. It states that I can solve equations using the multiplication inverse property. So far in this lesson, we learned how to solve equations by adding the opposite to both sides or subtracting from both sides. So the first video that went with this target is similar to this question. X plus 2/3 equals negative 1/6. If I want to get x alone, I'm going to take away 2/3 from both sides. So 2/3 plus negative 2/3 is 0. So I'd be left with x equals negative 1/6 plus 2/3. So we have to apply our strategy for adding fractions. These fractions do not have a common denominator, so I would need to rewrite this problem. 2/3 can become 1/6, so it's negative 1/6 plus 3 times 2 is 6, and 2 times 2 is 4, plus 4/6. Negative 1 plus 4 is 3, so x equals 3/6, or 1/2. So x equals 1/2. Well, what if we have fractions in a problem, but we're multiplying? It's 1/3 times x equals 4. So 1/3 times what? 1/3 times what number? It equals 4. Well, there's a simpler way to solve this problem. If you multiply each side by the inverse of 1/3, it's like adding negative 2/3 to both sides because it's the opposite of 2/3. We added the opposite to both sides. So in this case, we're going to multiply both sides by the opposite. Well, what's the opposite of 1/3? It's not negative 1/3. It's actually called the reciprocal. The reciprocal of 1/3 is 3. So if I multiply 3 times 1/3, I would end up getting 3 over 1 times 1 over 3, 1, because it would be 3 over 3. In other words, I cleared 1/3 away from x. So I'm going to multiply 3 times 1/3 x. Whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. I multiplied the left side by 3, so I have to multiply the right side by 3. 3 times 1/3 is 1, x, so I'm left with x, and 4 times 3 is 12. Looks simple, right? I just multiplied each side by the reciprocal of 1/3, which was 3. X equals 12. And that works because what is 1/3 of 12? 1/3 of 12 is 4. So to understand this target better, we should practice the reciprocal. So think ahead. What's the reciprocal of 1/2? Well, if you flip 1/2 upside down, the reciprocal of 1/2 equals 2. What's the reciprocal of negative 2/3? If you flip negative 2/3 over, what would you get? Negative 3/2. The negative still stays. Everything stays the same except you flip the fraction upside down. And the reciprocal of 4 seems to be a tougher one because if I flip it, what do I get? Well, nothing unless I remember 4 is any number, any whole number can be written over 1. 4 is over 1, it's 4 over 1. 4 over 1, its reciprocal would be 1/4. So the strategy to solving equations that have fractions in multiplication is to multiply by the reciprocal. So what's the reciprocal of 2/5? The reciprocal of 2/5 is 5/2. If I flip this upside down, I get 5 over 2. And the reason I do that is because 5 over 2 times 2 over 5, if I multiply across, is 10 over 10. Or in other words, it's 1x. So I accomplished my job of getting x alone. But whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So I'm going to multiply the other side by 5/2 as well. 5/2 times 2/5 is 1x. And 10 over 1 times 5/2 is 50/2. 10 times 5 is 50. 1 times 2 is 2. So it's 50 over 2, or 25. So x equals 25. So this is where multiplying by the reciprocal really comes in handy because this would be a hard problem to solve. If you can multiply both sides by the reciprocal of 2/3, then this problem will be a lot simpler than it looks. I want to get x alone, so I want to get rid of 2/3 times x. So I'm going to multiply each side by the reciprocal of 2/3. So if I flip 2/3 over, it's 3/2. 3/2 times 2/3 x. Well, as long as I do the same thing to the other side, equals 4/5 times 3/2. Then the equation stays balanced. 3/2 times 2/3 is 1x. So 4 times 3 is 12, and 5 times 2 is 10. So if I multiply across, when I multiply fractions, I get 12/10. And this can be reduced. 12 and 10 have a common factor of 2, so it would be 6/5, which is an improper fraction, which can be rewritten as 5 goes into 6 one time, and 6 minus 5 is 1, so it's, 5 goes into 6 one time, and there's 1/5 remaining, so it's 1 1/5. Alright, now you try. Click pause. There's 3 problems to try. Here's number 3. The first 2 questions ask you to find the reciprocal. So try finding the reciprocal of number 4/5 and -7/8. The third question is try solving by multiplying by the reciprocal. Click pause, try each problem, and when you're ready to see the solutions, click play, and I'll review them for you. Good luck. Okay, check your answers. Hopefully you solved these 3 problems in your notebook. So what did you think the reciprocal of 4/5 was? Well, if I flip 4/5 over, the reciprocal would be, I guess it's not equal. The reciprocal of 4/5 is 5/4. So the answer is 5/4. And the reason for that is because if I multiply 4/5 times its reciprocal, I get 20/20, or 1. And anytime you multiply a number by its reciprocal, you get 1. The reciprocal of -7/8 is -8/7. It's a negative times a negative, so the answer is going to be positive. And 7 times 8 is 56, and 8 times 7 is 56. 56 over 56 is 1. So the answer to number 1 was 5/4. The answer to number 2 is -8/7. Check your answers. So the last problem, we're going to use the multiplicative inverse property. We're going to multiply by the reciprocal to get x alone. The reciprocal of 5/6 is 6/5. 6/5 times 5/6x equals 10. Since I multiplied the left side times 6/5, I need to multiply the right side times 6/5. 6/5 times 5/6 is 1x. So I'm just left multiplying. 10 times 6 is 60, and 5 times 1 is 5. So it's 60/5, which can be reduced. X equals 12. So for number 3, x equals 12. How'd you do?